Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki
Jai.
Tali Vishnu Vishnupad Astadara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Bharati Maharaj Ki
Jai.
Tali Vishnu Vishnupad Astadara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj Ki
Jai.
Tali Vishnu Vishnupad Astadara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj Ki
Jai.
Dali Vishnu Vishnupad Astadara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Nityali Vishnu Vishnupad Astadara Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Dali Vishnu Vishnupad Paramahamsa Maharaj Acharya Astadara Sata Shri Srimad Jagat Guru Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada Ki Maha Bhagavat Srila Gaura Kishore Maharaj Ki Shapta Goswami Sachchit Ananda Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Nanda Prabhu Trai Ki Shri Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Shri Rupa Shri Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Shri Sri Damodar Raya Randa Shri Gaura Padashah Vrinda Ki Tirubhav Mahamhotsava Shri Ramananda Raya Ki Shri Ananta Koti Ki Samagata Bhakta Vrinda Ki Sakai Gaura Premanande
Hari Hari Bol. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tata Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tishe Namaha Anarpita Charim Chirat Karunaya Vatirna Kalo Samarpaitum Unato Jvalar Sam Swabhaktya Janava Pataye Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jayatam Suruto Pangor Mama Mandamater Gati Mat Sarvasva Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpad Srimad Ratnagara Singhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prishtalabhi Sevyamano Smarami Shriman Rasarasarambi Vam Shivata Tatakstitaha Karshana Venu Swanair Gopir Gopi Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namah Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams, my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Ashtatarasata Sri Srila, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. And then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Asto Tarasata Sri Srila, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila, Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering my Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga. And on this most auspicious occasion of the disappearance day of Srimad Mahaprabhu's most intimate associate, Sri Ramananda Roy, the avatar and incarnation of Sri Vishaka Devi in Gaur Leela. So I'm offering my unlimited, infinite number of Dandavat Pranams at his divine lotus feet and praying on this holy Tirobhav Mahotsav Titi that he can be merciful to all of us so that we can imbibe his transcendental qualities and hear about his most exalted position and thus proceed forward to the ultimate goal of life, Sri Krishna Prema. My Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and to all the Vaishnavis on this auspicious occasion. Where's Damodar? Oh, okay. Can you bring some more of those carpet pieces? Just scatter them around here so that everybody has something to sit on. So we're going to be reading now from the book of Srila Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Goswami, the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this has a very, very wonderful presentation of Sri Ramananda Roy's life and his relationship with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, pastimes and so forth. We will gain so much from hearing this. So as Srila Tirtha Maharaj often begins each individual who he's telling about in Gaur Leela, he always quotes from the authorized scriptures such as Gaur Ganodesha Deepika and so forth, to understand what is the actual identity in Krishna Leela. So there's a very interesting explanation here. I'm reading the verses. There's looks like about 8 or 10 verses from Gaur Ganodesha Deepika. Priya Narma Saka Kaschid Arjuna Pandavo Arjuna Militva Samabud Rama Nandaraya Prabho Priya Ato Radha Krishna Bhakti Prema Tatvadikam Kriti Ramanando Gaura Chandram Pratyavarnayad Anvaham Lalitetya Hureke Yat Tareke Nanu Manyate Bhavanandam Prati Praha Gauro yat tvam pritapati. Gopyarjuniyaya saradham eki bhuyapi pandava arjuno yad rai ramananda iti ahur uttama. Arjuni ya bhavat turnam Arjuno pi cha pandava iti padmottara kande vyaktam eva virajate tasmad etat trayam Ramanandaraya Mahashaya. So this is the translation of these verses from Gaur Ganadesha Deepika. There are two Arjunas in Krishna Lila. If we need more chairs, if there's no more chairs, we can bring more from my room. If there's devotees that need to sit in any chairs.
There's also two right in the shop.
Then we can bring those. So, this is going to be very interesting. It's explaining here that there are two Arjunas in Krishna Lila. Did you know that there's two Arjunas in Krishna Lila? One is a Priyanarma Saka in Braj, and the other one of the Pandavas. Right? So Priyanarma Saka. What is a Priyanarma Saka? You've written a book. What is a Priyanarma Saka?
It's a Saka who's they're a Saka that has a...
What is a Saka?
They're a friend of Krishna who has fraternal love and devotion, who is mixed with a certain type of manjari bhav.
No. No. It is not mixed. This is a very high topic. I'm not going to get into that. But just so that everybody knows, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was gonna. You can answer the question.
Well, let me finish what I'm saying first. You wanted to ask a question?
Oh no, I thought you were calling on us to.
He wants to answer the question.
Oh, okay.
But it's okay.
No, he's also telling it right. I just want to have it more explicit. A Priyanarma Saka is a certain category of Krishna's cowherd friends who assists Krishna when Krishna goes especially to meet with the gopis, as he does every day, secretly. And then that Saka, there's a number of them, Priyanarma Sakas, they have a closer connection with the moods of the gopis. Not that they are experiencing the moods of the gopis. This is a very important point. They are not experiencing the moods of the gopis. And that's an extensive topic which we can give plenty of praman and evidence from many, many different shastras to explain that. But the point is that they are serving a certain purpose in Krishna's Leela, because otherwise how will Krishna go to meet with the gopis? So therefore Yogamaya, as she has manifested all the different relationships in Braj and in all the different rasas, simply for assisting Krishna in his pastimes, right? All the other rasas are assisting Madhurya rasa. Madhurya rasa is on the top position, and all others are supporting that and assisting that and enabling that to happen. So the Priyanarma, just like there are also Priyanarma Sakis, we sing that every single night in our, which Artik song?
Jugala Arti.
The what?
Jugala Arti.
Yes. What is the line?
Priyanarma Saki Jato Chamala Dalai.
Yes. And who are the Priyanarma Sakis? It's okay. The Priyanarma Sakis, they are the principal Sakis, Priyanarma. And they are waving the chamara. Anyway, Gurudev has gone into this extensively in various lectures of his. So, the Priyanarma Sakas, they go with Krishna, or one of them at least goes with Krishna when he meets with the Braja Gopis, and they stay nearby. Not that they are there in the exchanges in the Kunja. They have their own Kunja, especially at Radhakund. Did you know that? That the 8 principal Priyanarma Sakas, they also have their kunjas surrounding Radhakunda, but they've donated their kunjas for the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So here it's saying that there are 2 Arjunas in Krishna Lila. One is a Priyanarma Saka in Braj, and the other is one of the Pandavas, Arjuna. We know that one very well. So these 2, both of these combined to become Ramananda Rai, the dear companion of Mahaprabhu. Now we have to hear the rest of this. This is not the only understanding of Ramananda Rai and his identity. So, he is the dear companion of Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Rai. He was very knowledgeable in the teachings of loving devotion to Radha and Krishna, which he described to Gaurachandra on a daily basis. Some people say that Ramananda Roy was Lalita Sakhi, while others do not. Sorry. Some people say that Ramananda Roy was Lalita Sakhi, while others do not. Mahaprabhu himself told Bhavananda Roy, who is the father of Ramananda Roy, Mahaprabhu himself told him that he was Pandu, the husband of Kunti and the father of the Pandavas. The Pandava Arjuna also united with the gopi named Arjuniya. There's also a gopi named Arjuniya, and the Pandava Arjun united with the gopi named Arjuniya, and thus the most aware, they say that Ramananda Roy combined all these 3 personalities. And proof of this is found in the Padma Purana, where it is stated that the Pandava Arjuna became the Gopi Arjuniya. So that's the quotation from the Gaur Ganadesha Deepika.
So 3 distinct souls in one body.
Yeah, but you're going to hear more. As stated in these verses from Gaur Ganadesha Deepika, some people hold that Ramananda Roy was an incarnation of Lalita, and some others are of the opinion that he was Vishaka. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita, he writes, quote, "The same love which Vishaka had for Radha and Krishna in Vraj, and that love which Radha and Krishna had for Vishaka, it awakened in them when they met. Thus it is clear that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur saw Ramananda Roy as Vishaka." So that's our understanding as well. Ramananda Roy was one of the Lord's 3.5 most intimate associates. Now, here's a quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Lord accepted Shiki Mahiti's sister as one of Radha's friends. Who is Shiki Mahiti's sister? Huh? No. I think Damayanti. The Lord accepted Shiki Mahiti's sister as one of Radha's friends. In the entire world, there were only 3.5 devotees who were so worthy. They were Swarup Damodar Goswami, Ramananda Roy, and Shiki Mahiti. And his sister was the half-person. Ramananda's social status. Now, we're going to hear about his background. Ramananda Roy's father was named Bhavananda Roy. And he was born in a family of the Orissan Karana caste, which is an administrative clan like the Kayashtas. So he was previously, in previous incarnation, in Krishna Lila, he was King Pandu. He had 5 sons, of whom Ramananda was the oldest. The other 4 brothers were Gopinath Patanayaka, Kalanidhi, Sudhanidhi, and Vaninath Patanayaka. Those are the 5. The Lord states in Chaitanya Charitamrita, quote, "You are Pandu himself, and your wife is Kunti. Your 5 sons are the 5 Pandavas." You can go to the birthplace of Ramananda Roy, which is near to Jagannath Puri, right near to Alalnath, in that area. And there's a house there, and that's supposed to be the actual birthplace. And the family, which has come down, they look after that place. And generally they'll show you 2 items. You know which?
Is it a sword and a pen?
Yes. Ramananda Roy's sword and his pen. So you can see that.
Which one is mightier?
So, Bhavananda Roy made his home in Brahmagiri, or Alalnath, about 12 miles west of Puri. Manohar Roy, a descendant of Ramananda Roy, has written his family's history. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur has summarized some details of this account in his Anubhashya. And he concludes, quote, "Orissan society considers the Karana community to be part of the Shudra caste. Ramananda Roy was born into this community. And nevertheless, though he was considered by society to be a Shudra by birth, he was a de facto Brahmin. Indeed, as a Vaishnav Paramahansa, he was spiritual master to the Brahmanas. By Krishna's will, the creator, Brahma himself, appeared in an outcast family in order to show that one's family and one's race have absolutely no importance. Born as a Muslim, Haridas Thakur still enriched Lord Gauranga's pastimes." So these 2 personalities hold practically the highest positions in Gaur Leela. But yet, one is born in a Muslim family. What are Muslims considered to be by Vedic culture? Huh? They're Yavanas. They're outcasts from Vedic society. And his birth, and so Ramananda Roy, his pastimes took place where he took birth in a Shudra family. According to the divisions of Varnashram, this Kayasta position, it was a Shudra position. So Mahaprabhu actually intentionally arranged this, that so many of his dear eternal associates took birth in various places, and even in low-class families. Why? Why did he do that? Why not all were taking birth in Brahmin families? Because Mahaprabhu's mission is to save every single jiva. What to speak of humans, even the animals. So therefore Mahaprabhu arranged to show that birth is completely irrelevant in terms of spiritual advancement, right? So he demonstrated that with his very own eternal associates. So there's a quote here about Haridas Thakur, because this is relevant to this point. Haridas Thakur was born in a low caste family, from Chaitanya Bhagavat. And on the Lord's order, he was born in a low caste family on the Lord's order in order to show that caste and class have no importance at all. All the scriptures say that a devotee of Vishnu, although born in a low family, is still worshipable by all. What will one's caste do for one is born in a high caste but does not worship Krishna? He will go to hell in spite of his high birth. Haridas took a low birth just to bear witness to these scriptural statements. So he is comparable to Prahlad, who was born in a family of demons, or to Hanuman, who was born a monkey. They belong only superficially to low castes. A Vaishnava is beyond the qualities of the material nature. Anyone who considers a devotee in terms of his birth or race is destined for what? Hellish condition. Here's the verse. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's from Padma Purana. Archye Shiladir Gurushu Naramatir Vaishnave Jati Buddhir. Vishnor Va Vaishnavanam Kalimala Matane Patatirte Ambu Buddhi. Shri Vishnor Nam Nimantre Sakala Kalusahe Shabda Samanya Buddhir. Vishnu Sarveshvare Tad Itara Samadhir Yasya Va Naraki Sa. So here's the translation. This is a very important verse, very often quoted. So, in each line of this verse, it's talking about how a person's mundane consciousness will not be able to perceive the transcendental nature of something. First one, anyone who considers the deity to be nothing but stone, who considers the guru to be an ordinary human being, who considers the Vaishnava to be a member of a particular caste or race, who takes the holy water which has washed Vishnu or Vaishnava's feet and can destroy all the sins of Kali to be ordinary water, Sharanamrita, who thinks that the name or the mantra of Vishnu, which destroys all evils, is the same as any other sound, or who takes Vishnu to be the same as anything other than him, then that person has what? A hellish nature. Naraki. Naraka means hell. So, one is not headed for a very auspicious situation if one is not showing proper respect and worship of these holy items. According to the Bhajana Nirnoy, Ramananda was the disciple of Raghavendra Puri and a grand disciple of Madhavendra Puri. Now, Sarvabhauma tells the Lord about Ramananda. Here's that pastime. Rai Ramananda was King Prataparudra's governor in Vidyanagar, and later he was one of his ministers. The Lord took sannyas in the month of Magh, and he arrived in Puri during the month of Falgun. So this is in the winter time, right? Month of Magh, January, February. So, after celebrating the Dol Yatra, what's Dol Yatra? No. This is what they call in Bengal, what we call Gaur Purnima, they call that Dol Yatra. So, after celebrating the Dol Yatra in Puri, Mahaprabhu delivered Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in the month of Chaitra. Then in the month of Vaishak, he set off on his pilgrimage to South India. Though Mahaprabhu had decided to travel alone, Nityananda Prabhu convinced him to take a servant, Krishna Das, as a traveling companion. As he was leaving, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gave the Lord 4 kopins and loincloths, and he requested him to visit Ramananda Roy on the banks of Godavari. So here's a quotation. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. As Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was departing, then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya submitted the following at his lotus feet. My Lord, you must fulfill this request of mine. In the town of Vidyanagar, on the bank of Godavari, there is a responsible government officer named Ramananda Roy. Please do not neglect him, thinking that he belongs to a Shudra family engaged in materialistic activities. Please take my word for it, that you should meet him without fail. If anyone is fit to associate with you, it is he. No other devotee can compare with him in knowledge of the divine sentiments. He has attained the highest limits of learning, as well as being experienced in the science of devotional sentiments. If you converse with him, you will recognize his exalted character. And when I first met him, who's telling this? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, after he's been converted by Mahaprabhu. So he says, when I first met him, I could not understand that everything he said and did were all transcendental. And I made fun of him simply because he was a Vaishnava. Because at that time, what was Sarvabhauma's understanding? Mayavad. So he made fun of Ramananda Roy because the Mayavadis think that the Vaishnavas are sentimentalists. Right? By your mercy, I can now understand the truth about Ramananda Roy. In talking with him, you also will acknowledge his greatness. Now, Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has commented as follows. To superficial understanding, Ramananda Roy was not a sannyasi wearing a loincloth. In common understanding, those who are courtiers engaged in government service, they are materialistic. But Ramananda Roy was in fact a learned person who was a de facto sannyasi as a perfected human being. This is the words of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had previously been able to recognize his natural qualities as a Vaishnava, even though he himself was not a Vaishnava at that time. And when he took to devotional service by the grace of the Lord, then he reconsidered his opinion of Ramananda, and he realized the extent of his qualifications, calling him an Adhikari Rasik Bhakta, the most highly qualified authority in the matters of devotional sentiment. End quote. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was the incarnation of who? Who was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? The incarnation of? I think I moved this camera.
No, it's still on it. I can see it. It's good.
Okay. Yeah? Who was he in incarnation? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Brihaspati. Who is Brihaspati? Yes. So, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was the incarnation of Brihaspati, and he was the court pundit of King Prataparudra. So directly, he was the pundit of the entire court of the king. Very learned personality. He was so learned that even though a householder, he had sannyasis as his disciples. Nevertheless, he had been unable to recognize that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the Supreme Lord himself, nor was he able to identify Ramananda Roy as his most intimate associate. If he was unable to do so, then how much more difficult it would be for others. No one is able to understand the glories of the Lord and his devotees without being blessed by their mercy. And there's a quote here from Madhya Lila. Mental speculation is of no value for understanding the nature of the Supreme Lord. Without the Lord's mercy, no person can come to know him. One to whom the Lord gives even a slight drop of mercy is able to understand his nature. So that quote, who spoke it? Anyone who knows the Gaur Lila? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was not understanding when Mahaprabhu came to Puri, but he had a brother-in-law. What was his brother-in-law's name? Yes, Gopinathacharya. And Gopinathacharya had lived in Navadvip, and he fully understood who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. And therefore there was a friendly conversation between him and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he was trying to show him that you don't understand anything about this sannyasi, right? And he made this point that without the Lord's mercy, no one can come to know him, no person. So one to whom the Lord gives even a slight drop of mercy, he is able to understand his nature. So now is the narration of Mahaprabhu meeting Ramananda Roy. Where? Yes, on the banks of the Godavari. There's a very beautiful Gaudiya Mutt, which was built in that same area. Forget the name of the actual town. And who built that Gaudiya Mutt? Yes. Now, Mahaprabhu set off to the south. When Mahaprabhu left Puri from Alanath, that pastime, and began walking away, and the associates were not allowed to follow him. But they were standing there as Mahaprabhu walked away. What was Mahaprabhu singing when he walked away? We can all sing. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, 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 Rakshama. Krishna, 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 Pahima. Rama, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshama. Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Pahima. So this came from Mahaprabhu's lotus mouth. It's there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. As he walked and began his tour of South India. How long was Mahaprabhu gone from Puri on his tour of South India?
4 months.
No, much longer. Hmm? Yes, more than 2 years.
6 years.
No, not 6 years. Who said 6 years? No, that's the total amount of time that Mahaprabhu traveled outside of Puri, including his trips to the north and so forth. But his first trip to Puri, to South India, was about 2 years. Now, Mahaprabhu set off to the south, blessing the inhabitants of the land by bestowing devotion to Krishna on all of them. And that's a beautiful description in Chaitanya Charitamrita, showing how, as Mahaprabhu traveled, anyone who saw him became overwhelmed with Krishna prema. And then that person went back to their village, and anyone who saw that person became overwhelmed with Krishna praying. Very powerful how Mahaprabhu distributed. So Mahaprabhu visited Kurmastan, delivering the Brahmin, who was also named Kurma, and giving everyone the order to preach devotional service to Krishna. In that verse, the famous verse. What is that verse? No. Jare Dako Tare Koho Krishna Upadesh Amar Agyai Guru Hoya Tar E Desh. What's the translation? Jare Dako Tare Koho Krishna Upadesh. What does that mean? Whoever you see, tell them Krishna Upadesh. And then Amar Agyai Guru Hoya. Upon my order, you become Guru. Guru Hoya, you become Guru. And Tar E Desh, deliver the whole land. So, yes, so, and he gave everyone the order to preach devotional service to Krishna. He saved Vasudev Vipra, and then he went on to Singhachalam, where he danced before the deity of Jyar Nishringa. Then he went on to the Godavari river, which in his vision, how did he see the Godavari river? As Yamuna. And he saw the woods on its bank as Vrindavan. Then he joyfully crossed the river. He came to the place known as Kabur, where he bathed in the river, hoping to meet Ramananda Roy. Coming out of the water, he sat down and he waited for him. At the same time, Ramananda Roy passed by with a fanfare. When he saw Mahaprabhu's supernatural form, he descended from his palanquin and he paid his obeisances to the Lord. Though Mahaprabhu recognized him, he asked him to identify himself. Then Ramananda Roy replied that he was nothing but a lowly Shudra servant. When the Lord heard him speak in this humble manner, he immediately embraced him. Both the Lord and his servant felt the onset of divine emotions, and the both experienced the 8 ecstatic transformations of praying. The Brahmins who were accompanying Ramananda, they were astonished to see such a display. This fanfare, what was in this big entourage that Ramananda Roy had?
A lot of Brahmins chanting Vedic hymns.
Yes.
And, there's flags and elephants.
Yes. They were carrying him on a palanquin, right? And there were also soldiers. So many, because he was the governor of Madras. He was the actual governor. So, the Brahmins who were accompanying Ramananda, they were astonished to see such a display. They thought, this is how they thought, this sannyasi is as effulgent as the Brahma Jyoti. Why is he crying while embracing this Shudra? The governor Ramananda is a scholar, and normally he is very serious. So why has he become so emotional about being touched by this sannyasi as though intoxicated? So seeing that there were outsiders present, the Lord controlled his emotions. And he told Ramananda that he had been told by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to seek him out. And Ramananda replied with humility. Here's the quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita, what Ramananda replied. He says, "This is the proof of your mercy to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. You have touched me, an untouchable, simply due to his love for you. What a difference exists between us. You are the Supreme Lord, Narayan himself, and I, a government servant, interested in materialistic activities. Indeed, I am the lowest among men of the 4th caste. Even so, you were not contemptuous of my touch, and neither did you fear the Vedic injunctions which forbid one to even look upon Shudra. Your mercy makes you touch me, even though this activity is condemned by the scriptures and by society. Who can understand your intention? For you are the Supreme Lord himself. Though the Brahmins, they had never shown the slightest interest in bhakti, they too were influenced by the sight of the Lord, and they began to chant the names of Krishna, their voices trembling with divine ecstasy. Ramananda Roy said aloud that Mahaprabhu was the Supreme Lord, both in akriti, or in form, and in prakriti, or nature. Who said this? Ramananda Roy. So the Lord immediately responded in a way that would show the greatness of his devotee. This is what Mahaprabhu told in response. The Lord said, "You are a great devotee. Indeed, you are the best amongst them. All those who behold you are immediately affected so that their hearts melt. What to speak of others? I am a Mayavadi sannyasi, yet I feel the onset of Krishna Prem when I touch you." So now is where the conversation begins between Ramananda Roy and Mahaprabhu is the listener. So when Mahaprabhu told him of his desire to hear Krishna Katha from his lips, then Ramananda suggested that he stay for a week or so at his house so that his own wicked mind could be pacified and purified. The two then each went their way to finish their duties, returning to the same spot in the evening. Ordinarily it is seen that a devotee asks the questions and the Lord answers. That's the usual, right? So this time, however, the roles were reversed. And the Lord asked Ramananda to clarify certain spiritual truths. And then he empowered him to respond. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami makes this explicit in the verse which opens the 8th chapter of the Madhya Lila. And this is the verse composed by Krishnadas Kaviraj. In the first verse of each chapter is giving somewhat of a summary of the topics in that chapter. So this is the verse. Gurudev also lectured on this verse. Sancharya Rama Bida Bhakta Mege Svabhakti Siddhanta Chayamritani Gorabdir Eitayar Amuna Vitirnais Touch Gyatva Ramalayatam Prayati. So here is the translation. Gauranga is like the ocean. So this is an analogy. Gauranga is like the ocean of spiritual truths, tattva. He filled the cloud named Ramananda. So where do clouds come from?
The ocean.
They come from, how do they come?
Evaporation.
Yes, they come from the ocean. So Gauranga is that ocean of spiritual truths, and he filled the cloud named Ramananda. With what? With the nectar of the purest conclusions of devotion to himself. Ramananda then rained down that same nectar on the very ocean from which it had come, producing the jewels of transcendental knowledge. So, what is that referring to? Producing jewels rained down on the ocean? Our astrologer can explain. Yes.
During the Swati Nakshatra, when
What is a Swati Nakshatra?
when the moon is in the middle of what's called in English Libra or Tula.
Okay. Don't get too, specific. Does it happen very often, this constellation?
So pearls are produced.
At which time?
At the time of Swati Nakshatra, when it rains.
How often does Swati Nakshatra happen?
Actually, it happens once a month.
Once a month, okay. So during the Swati Nakshatra, when it rains on the ocean, what happens inside of the ocean? Do the pearls just appear here and there? Where do the pearls appear? Are they scattered on the ocean floor or what? In clamshells, thank you. But the cause of the clam producing the pearl is that occurrence. Without that, the clam cannot produce a pearl. So this exact analogy is being used by Krishnadas Kaviraj to show what? Ramananda Roy has received, as being the cloud, he's received all of his water, spiritual truths and everything from the ocean, which is Mahaprabhu. Now he's raining it back on the ocean, right? And the ocean is Mahaprabhu. So Mahaprabhu's hearing all this. And what is produced? The Swati Nakshatra has produced pearls, which means what? The jewels of very, very high tattva, spiritual transcendental knowledge. Now, a person who has not taken shelter of the Lord, he may try to understand the supreme truth by using empirical means without achieving any success. Indeed, he will fail. Indeed, he will fall into confusion and he will be unable to understand the words of the Lord. So Mahaprabhu, he asked Ramananda Roy to explain to him. Here's the beginning of the conversation. Mahaprabhu is putting forward a request to Ramananda Roy. Who is Mahaprabhu? We should know this before this conversation begins.
Radha.
Huh?
Radha.
Explain.
It's Krishna coming in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Use a mic.
It's Krishna coming in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to taste Srimati Radhika's moods. And so he takes on this golden form that we know as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Where did it come from, the golden form?
Golden form?
Where did the golden color come from?
From Srimati Radhika.
Ah. And what else? Her bhavs.
Her bhavs.
Right? Her moods. So the whole understanding of who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is all throughout the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially in chapter 4, Adi Leela. You have to read that to understand Gurudev said, otherwise you can't understand Chaitanya Charitamrita. All these very high pastimes of Mahaprabhu, and especially in his final years in Jagannath Puri with Ramananda Roy, with Swarup Damodar Goswami and so forth, all of these pastimes are showing that in order for Krishna to dive deep within the ocean of Srimati Radhika's prem, unnata ujjvala rasa, therefore he needs assistance. Why? Why does he need to be assisted in this attempt to dive deep into the ocean of Srimati Radhika's unlimited prem? Speak loudly.
Because she's a complete mystery to him in the sense of how she's devoted to him. So in her feelings, he has no access.
But I thought Krishna knows everything.
Except for
He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how can he not know? There's nothing unknown to him.
this is the mystery.
Mystery. Anyone know the answer to this mystery?
He's Purusha.
Purusha?
Yes, so his position is one of it being the enjoyer. And so Radharani's position is that she's the enjoyed and So she sees Krishna, so he doesn't know what that's like. She has happiness, and she has a feeling of love that is all is Prabhu said a mystery for Krishna, but he wants to taste it.
But why? Why is it a mystery for Krishna? Why is it beyond his purview? He's supposed to be the absolute truth from whom everything has come. He knows everything. Yeah. Give him the mic. No, here. He's answering. He's answering.
You said Yoga Maya.
No, answer. Why?
I was gonna say, I forget what verse it is. It says something about how Radha and Krishna are two because of the performance of Leela, and I'm guessing like he's saying that happens by Yoga Maya's power.
Yes, that's true, but still that's kind of vague. Anyway, I just wanted to drill everybody a little bit so that your brains start to try to understand. Why is Mahaprabhu coming to hear from this person? It's very necessary for him.
It's because he's coming in Anugatya, so because Lolita is the next line to studying Srimati Radhika, right?
Well, yes, without the gopis, without the assistance of the most intimate associates of Srimati Radhika, can enter into that realm, even Krishna. Why? Because Krishna is called Vishoy Bhagavan. You know what that means? Vishoy Bhagavan. He is the object of everyone's praying. He's the object of everyone's praying. Everyone is tasting Krishna because he's the emporium of all rasa, the ocean of rasa. When Gurudev was here, one of his first lectures up at the school, pranaya vikriti, of their loving pastimes. Their forms manifest in this way. Ekatmanavapi bhuvi puradeha bedam gototo. Previously, Ekatmanav, they were one. Ekatmanav puradeha bedam gototo. Now, Chaitanyakyam prakatam aduna tadvayam chaikyamaptam. Chaitanyakyam. Now, this personality named Chaitanya. Prakata aduna. Tadvayam chaikyam. The two have become one in this form. Radha Bhava Jyoti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. I offer my obeisances to this Krishna Swarup, this form of Krishna, who is now golden, who has taken the bhav, the moods, and the complexion, the golden color of Srimati Radhika. I offer my obeisances to that person, that form of Krishna. So, Krishna appeared in this world. That's his primary purpose. He has various reasons, internal, external. Gurudev went over all of this in his introductory lectures here in the West. Again and again he told. But we have to understand, why is he coming to this person Ramananda Roy? Because Ramananda Roy is Vishaka. And Ramananda Roy has manifested in this world, just as Swarup Damodar Goswami has manifested in this world, to become the most intimate associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, especially in his final pastimes in Puri, where he's in the Gambhira, and day and night, day and night, day and night, he's going deeper, 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 and drowning in Srimati Radhika's praying. They're assisting him every moment of the day and night. So now, Mahaprabhu is meeting Ramananda Roy for the first time. And as you heard, as soon as they met, there was immediately a recognition. But because of Yoga Maya, they're not thinking, oh, you're actually Vishaka. No. But Ramananda Roy is playing the role of a Vaishnava who realizes. He's a fully realized Vaishnava, and he's saying, you are Krishna.
He's immediately recognized.
He's recognizing, because he's a Paramahansa Mahabhagavat. Yeah? So, a person who has not taken shelter of the Lord may try to understand the supreme truth by using empirical means without achieving any success. Indeed, he will fail, and he will fall into confusion and be unable to understand the words of the Lord. So Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Roy to explain to him with evidence from the scriptures. This is very important. Not just talking, but every point that he'll make, he has to back it up with evidence from the Shastras. And what was the topic? He wanted him to explain what is the ultimate goal of life. Because Mahaprabhu is in this form to achieve this ultimate goal. He's Krishna, wanting to taste the ultimate experience of Srimati Radhika's prema. So he asked him to explain what is the ultimate goal of life. He also told him that he wants to know what will be the process to achieve that goal. So Ramananda Roy started his response by explaining what? He started by explaining that devotion to Vishnu was the ultimate aim of human achievement, or it is called the sadhya. Devotion to Vishnu. And in this theistic conception, he described progressive path of different practices leading to that goal. Starting from the practice of what? Varnashram Dharma. So why is Ramananda Roy explaining this? Because Mahaprabhu has not come to Ramananda Roy to hear about Varnashram Dharma. But Ramananda Roy is making a platform to show that if one disregards the scriptural directions given to human society, one will fail to reach this ultimate goal. So there has to be an initial acceptance of the proper behavior, the proper conduct according to the scriptures, and that begins with Varnashram Dharma. Now, in this way, this theistic conception, he described progressive path of different practices leading to that goal, starting with Varnashram Dharma. Then, the next point, because Mahaprabhu said this is external. Continue. The next point, offering the fruits of one's activities. What's that called? Krishna Karmarpana. Karma Arpana. The fruits of your action. Offering that to Krishna. Next one, renunciation of prescribed duties, which is called Karma Tyag. Going beyond the Varnashram. Then comes Jnana Mishra Bhakti, which means what? Mishra means mixed. Bhakti mixed with what? Jnana. Devotion mixed with knowledge. All of these points, Mahaprabhu has told him, this is Eho Bahya, Age Kohoar. This is external, continue speaking further. So he encouraged him, step by step by step. Now the next principle was Mahaprabhu rejected each proposal, however, saying that it was superficial or external, for none of these practices were potential means for achieving the pure devotion which he had come to give. So by starting this conversation with Ramananda Roy, with Varnashram Dharma, Mahaprabhu showed that all activities which ignore the Vedic principles or go against them are to be completely rejected. When responding to each of Ramananda's suggestions, Mahaprabhu did not say, absolutely not. No. He rather used the word Eho Bahya. This is peripheral. This is external. The idea is that one must first give up activities which are outside the scope of the Vedic standard. Once one is fixed in these principles, then one can progressively gain the qualifications to proceed through each of the various steps described by Ramananda. This holds true even though bhakti itself is completely independent and may manifest in an individual through the association of saintly persons, despite one's having no prior qualification or having gone through these prior steps. So when Ramananda Roy finally answered Mahaprabhu's question by saying the following: pure devotional service without any tinge of speculative knowledge, that means jnana shunya bhakti, no speculative knowledge, that bhakti is the means to achieve the supreme perfection. Mahaprabhu finally accepted his conclusion. And from this point on, Mahaprabhu's teachings actually begin. And the words jnana shunya, they are meant to completely eradicate any consciousness of the impersonal aspect of the Supreme, and not the kind of knowledge of relationships, sambandha jnana, which is favorable to the attainment of pure devotional service. So it doesn't mean there's no jnana, but there's sambandha jnana, not speculative, impersonal jnana. Now Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he writes in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya, commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says, the purport is that sacrificing the results of one's actions is better than merely engaging in one's prescribed duties according to Varnashram Dharma. So what's better than just engaging in one's duties? Sacrificing what? Yes, sacrificing the fruits. Not just doing your duty and enjoying all the fruits. No. The purport is that sacrificing the results of one's actions, it is better than merely engaging in one's prescribed duties according to the Varnashram Dharma. Then the renunciation of fruitive activities, this is better than simply giving up the fruits. What is that? Renunciation of fruitive activities entirely is better than simply giving up the fruits. And better than this is the cultivation of knowledge mixed with bhakti. Jnana Mishra Bhakti. However, despite this progressive improvement in spirituality through these stages, they are all superficial, because these four kinds of practices have no power to achieve pure devotion or Shuddha Bhakti. The devotion known as Aropa Siddha, by which is meant adding a devotional veneer as an afterthought. That's one type. The devotional veneer. What does Aropa mean? To superimpose. So you superimpose your desires for sense gratification on bhakti. That's called Aropa. Okay? So adding a devotional veneer as an afterthought. And then Sangha Siddha, which means devotion by associating a fruitive activity with some devotional act. So there's an association between your attempt to enjoy and devotion, bhakti. So these two, they are never to be considered pure devotional service. Pure devotional service is called Swarup Siddha Bhakti. That is, it is devotion both in form and also in intent. So the form is devotion and also the intention is devotional. It is entirely different from these other activities which have only a superficial relationship to devotional service. The characteristics of Shuddha Bhakti are that it is activity executed uniquely for the pleasure of Krishna, which is devoid of any material desires. It is not hidden by the presence of fruitive intent or by knowledge of Brahman. This is the consciousness that is the ultimate goal of spiritual practice. For though it is practiced by an aspiring devotee, it is realized when he reaches perfection of his practice. That ends the quotation of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Now, as long as Ramananda Roy suggested anything other than following in the footsteps of the great devotees and listening to Krishna Katha from his lips, then Mahaprabhu kept on saying, this is irrelevant. Therefore it is to be understood that pure devotion starts from the moment that one begins to hear about the activities and the teachings of Lord Krishna from the lips of a pure devotee. That's where devotional service begins. From this point, Ramananda Roy described the various stages of pure devotion, the moods of neutrality, servitude, friendship, parenthood, conjugal love. From there he went on to describe Radha's love as being supreme, as well as both Radha and Krishna's characteristics. Then Mahaprabhu asked questions like, what is the essence of education? These are questions at the very end of the conversation. Bhakti Vallabha Maharaj is now just summarizing the entire Roy Ramananda Samvad. So at the end he asked different questions like, what is the essence of education? What kind of fame is best for the living being? All these things have been extensively described in the 8th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita's Madhya Lila. So in order to avoid deviating too much from the account of Ramananda's life, we will not go into these matters any further here. So now comes the point where Ramananda perceived the Lord's identity. The identity of the Lord cannot remain hidden to his devotee. If someone is a pure devotee, then Krishna can't hide his identity from them. So Ramananda, he was able to recognize the Lord for who he was, and he said the following. First, I saw you as an ordinary sannyasi, and now I see that you are actually a dark-skinned cowherd boy. I see a golden puppet, actually it's golden doll, that's how it's described. I see a golden puppet standing in front of you. Its golden effulgence covers your entire body. Now, this is, of course, a very, very esoteric and a very intimate point in the discussion where Ramananda Roy actually faints, because what he perceives and sees, he has never seen before. So Mahaprabhu, he made an effort to dissimulate his identity when he heard this, what Ramananda just told, how I'm seeing you. Huh?
Dissimulate or disseminate?
Dissimulate. He made an effort to dissimulate his identity when he heard this. It means to avoid revealing his identity. He said to Ramananda that Ramananda Roy was a great devotee. And thus, he saw Krishna everywhere. So Ramananda was trying to say, I'm perceiving who you really are. But then Mahaprabhu, in a tricky way, is saying, yes, because you're a great devotee. And great devotees see Krishna everywhere. You see? So Ramananda, however, he clearly stated the primary purpose of the Lord's incarnation. Mahaprabhu was pleased with his insightful realization. And he displayed his form as the combination. This is what he displayed. He displayed his form as the combination of Rasaraj. Who is Rasaraj? That's Krishna, who is the king of Rasa. And also the combination with the incarnation of Mahabhav. Who is that? The supremely devotional mood, Mahabhav, Srimati Radharani. So he displayed that to Ramananda. And when he saw this amazing combined form of the Lord, Ramananda Roy fell to the ground in a faint. When the Lord touched him, he regained consciousness. They remained together for 10 days, enjoying discussions of Krishna conscious topics. Before Mahaprabhu continued on his southern pilgrimage, he asked Ramananda to abandon his involvement with government service and to join him in Puri when he returned. What did Mahaprabhu ask Ramananda Roy to do?
To give up his government service and follow him to Jagannath.
Yes, to come there and to join him. Why? Because his government service is no longer necessary. Now he has the highest service to perform, directly to Krishna himself. So, when Mahaprabhu completed his sojourn in southern India, then he met with Ramananda once again on the banks of the Godavari. And he showed him the 2 books. Which 2 books? Brahma Samhita and Krishna Karnamrita, which he had found in his travels, and which substantiated all that Ramananda Roy had said in their previous conversations. So now Ramananda Roy copied the 2 manuscripts himself. The Lord remained another week with Ramananda, enjoying the pleasure of discussions about Krishna before heading back to Nilachala. So Ramananda refused to go with the Lord immediately, as he was obliged to wait for the king's permission, and also he would need to take care of his personal affairs. He promised to join the Lord in Puri as soon as he was able. And when the Lord arrived in Puri, he made his permanent residence in the house of who? Kashi Mishra. And King Prataparudra, he had heard about the Lord, and he was very enthusiastic about meeting him. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had assured him that once the Lord had returned from his southern pilgrimage, he would somehow or other arrange for him to have darshan. Unfortunately, no matter how hard Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya tried to convince him, the Lord insisted that he would not look upon a king. And thus, all attempts to arrange a meeting met with failure. When the king heard that Ramananda wished to return to Puri in order to be close to Mahaprabhu, he was quite happy to grant him permission. He allowed him to leave his duties in the government, and he continued to pay him a pension. Thus Ramananda first met with the king in Kathak, and then in Puri, before going to Kashi Mishra's home to meet with the Lord himself. Ramananda knew just how eager the king was to encounter Mahaprabhu, but rather than bringing up the matter directly, he simply glorified the king, telling him that Mahaprabhu has so much faith, telling Mahaprabhu that the king had so much faith in him, and how deep was his devotion to Krishna, and how kind he had been to free Ramananda from his government duties so that he could serve the Lord directly. And by recounting the king's virtues in this way, he was able to melt the Lord's resolve. You see? By this intimate exchange, he gradually softened the Lord. No one else could do it, but Ramananda could do it. Now in the meantime, the Lord's loincloths to King Prataparudra as a consolation. And though this gave the king a great deal of joy, his desire to meet the Lord simply increased, and he asked Ramananda to intercede on his behalf and to make some kind of arrangement. And when Ramananda finally approached the Lord directly asking him to be compassionate towards the Lord, towards the king, then the Lord will cook in a big pot. But if it is contaminated by a drop of liquor, it is untouchable. The king certainly possesses all good qualities, but everything has been ruined simply by his possession of the kingly title. If you are still very eager for the king to meet with me, then you can bring his son in his place. The scripture states that one's self is reborn in the son, and therefore if his son comes, it will be equal to his meeting with me. Ramananda Roy then went to inform the king about his talks with the Lord, and according to his request, he brought the king's son to see him. So, and then what happened when Mahaprabhu saw the king's son? You remember? When Mahaprabhu saw the son of the king was dressed as what? Kind of like a cowherd boy fashion, right? And you wanted to say?
I was just gonna say Mahaprabhu embraced him and
through the sun. So that's one incident when Mahaprabhu, oh my God, my battery, it's got 8% left. This is the problem with this battery. So anyway, the remainder of this, I think that we're waiting for the Artik to begin. Okay, but just to give us a short summary, that there's the incident of Mahaprabhu going to see Rupa Goswami, right? And then Ramananda Roy and the others, they came with Mahaprabhu, and then there was a whole conversation where Rupa Goswami was living at Haridas Thakur's Bhajan Kutir. And then, you know, the two great scholars, Ramananda Roy and Rupa Goswami, they were exchanging, and he kept on asking him, what is your introductory verse? Then he quoted this verse, Anarpita Chidim Sharat, and everyone became completely ecstatic. And Ramananda Roy kept on asking, kind of like testing Rupa Goswami, because they're meeting for the first time, you know, and then he was so much appreciative of Rupa Goswami's, all of his scholarship. And then the incident of Pradyumna Mishra meeting Ramananda Roy and being very confused because Ramananda Roy, he was engaged in serving the Devadasis, who were the dancers for Lord Jagannath, very young and very beautiful, attractive young girls. And he was very bewildered because he saw that Ramananda Roy was teaching them dancing, touching their bodies and decorating them and doing all these things. But then, when he became confused, then Mahaprabhu, this Pradyumna Mishra, Mahaprabhu said about Ramananda Roy, he said, I am a sannyasi and I consider myself to be renounced, but if I even hear the name of a woman, what to speak of seeing one? I feel an effect in my mind and body. So who is not moved by the sight of a woman? Everyone listen to me. Let me tell you about Ramananda Roy. Although they are so wonderful and uncommon that they really cannot be properly described, he personally serves Jagannath's young and beautiful Devadasis in every possible way. He personally bathes and dresses them and decorates them with ornaments, and while doing so, he naturally sees and touches the private parts of their bodies, but even so, his mind is never affected. He teaches the girls how to physically express all the moods of love to be acted out before Jagannath Dev, but his mind and body are as steady as wood or stone. Indeed, it is amazing that even when he touches such young girls, his mind is not disturbed. Only Ramananda has the right to do such things. Seeing him do them, I can understand that his body is not material, but has been completely transformed into a spiritual entity. So that incident, and then there's some beautiful quotations, but ultimately how in the last final pastimes of Mahaprabhu in Puri, how day and night, for the final 18 years of Mahaprabhu's manifest pastimes, Swarup Damodar and Rai Ramananda were constantly with Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu had his hands on their necks and weeping in the moods of Srimati Radhika's prem. And Mahaprabhu would disappear in the middle of the night, and then they would go to locate him again. This was going on for all these years, and Mahaprabhu was going deeper and deeper and deeper. So in this way, the pastimes of Ramananda Roy in Puri, also at the very end, Mahaprabhu spoke the Sikshastakam from his lotus mouth. That's the last chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, those 8 shlokas, and explained them to Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar. So in this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna coming to taste the moods of Srimati Radhika. Ramananda Roy is Vishaka Devi, Swarup Damodar is Lalita Devi, and they personally guided Mahaprabhu, and then every day Mahaprabhu would go to Gadadhar Pandit, who is Radha herself, and then learn so many things, hearing him read Srimad Bhagavatam, and then come back to the Gambhira and do his homework. And his homework was his bhajan, and all these personalities, they quoted and sang so many beautiful songs, quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam and all the different great Vaishnava poets. So in this way, on Ramananda Roy's disappearance day, we've heard a few drops of nectar, and we should understand that Ramananda Roy is so intimate associate of Mahaprabhu, and the conversation between him and Mahaprabhu is the highest pinnacle of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Gurudev told us. So we bow down at the lotus feet of Ramananda Roy, and we request that he shower his mercy upon all of us. Vansha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhu bheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo